Hello everyone, I am Damiano Di Francesco Mesa from the University of Cambridge, and I will present you our paper on accountable just-in-time network service provisioning using the smart contracts. So the rise of 5G networks promises high-quality connectivity to an unprecedented number of devices. Moreover, the high-quality connections would allow for novel applications simply impossible today, such as remote surgery. However, this introduces two new requirements. First, flexibility, by which we mean that given the number, dynamicity, and heterogeneity of connected devices, very different SLAs, so service level agreements, might be required by the users. The second one is accountability. In other words, to guarantee that the promised service level agreements reflect the actual quality of service that is delivered in service time. Some critical services, such as remote surgery, require accountable quality of service to be feasible. A surgeon performing an emergency remote surgery over 5G during high congestion times need a reliable connection with guaranteed bandwidth and latency bounds. And if something goes wrong, it needs to be possible to clearly trace the fault up to the correct party. However, the problem with current service contracts is that they do not provide those two properties. The service contracts, in fact, are often too general, and they contain service level agreements that are often opaque to the customers and with no real accountable service monitoring. This is why we propose to shift completely the paradigm of service contracts from long-term and general, like it is today, towards short-term and specialized. This means that operators offer dynamic short-term network service contracts with strict quality of service guarantees. That was what we want, what we are proposing. The quality of service guarantees makes such contracts accountable, so the A, while the flexibility makes allows customers to purchase them on the fly and depending on their actual needs. So what we call just in time. Our proposal, we need to remark that our proposal benefits both customers and operators. From the customer point of view, they are able to choose tailored services with the real service level agreements they require, so they're paying only for what they really need. On the other hand, the operators are expected to introduce more flexible and tailor-made service offerings, considering their coverage and capacity. And it is generally easier to, let's say, more accurately plan service level agreements if you are considering shorter term and tailored contracts. Operators, of course, will charge more for high demand or high quality slots, in general obtaining a better remuneration depending on the actual service quality and scarcity, so availability. Of course, managing this increasing number of shorter contracts will cause substantial management overheads in the current systems, which probably would result in a prohibitive increase in complexity. And this is why we propose to use DLT as smart contracts. So, in fact, we propose to encode service contracts with smart contracts, which are deployed by the operators. The transparency of smart contracts guarantees that the contract terms, especially the service level agreements that are encased, are clear for customers to inspect. They can go and check clearly. The immutability property instead makes sure that the service agreed cannot be changed in the future. So after the service has been agreed upon between customer and the operator. And finally, the self-execution property permits the service contract to carry on beyond the control of the operator, so protecting the customer. Basically, the contract execution is not executed by the operator, but by the validators of the underlying DLT. Moreover, such service contracts, encoded as smart contracts, will contain a quality of service receipt for all the delivered service that will remain both transparent and immutable, since they're stored inside the smart contract, providing accountability as they're not tamperable unilaterally by any of the two parties, so by either the operator or the customers that are involved. So we propose to deploy these smart contracts on a permissioned DLT, so in case of blockchain or permissioned blockchain. Using a permissioned approach has three main benefits for our system. First, a blockchain with a limited number of validators fits well the limited number of operators present in most countries. As we show later, the operators are also the validators in our system, in our proposed system. Second, the access restrictions that characterize permissioned DLTs allow for an accurate pinpointing in case of misbehavior of one of the validators. Finally, the third point, permissioned protocols may employ lighter consensus algorithms, often resulting in much better performances compared to permissionless ones. And performances are especially important in our application, as service contract validation should not be so slow as to not being able to allow for just-in-time service agreements as we envision. In our system, we have three classes of entities. So first, the customers. And the customers have limited access to the ledger mainly through a DApp, so a distributed application, and don't take part in the consensus. They inspect the currently available service contracts and choose one depending on their requirements and preferences. Also, do consider that this process can be fully automated, and the IoT devices, for example, can be considered customers in our scheme. Service operator are the second class of entity, second type of entity. And the operators create, manage, and deploy service contracts and allocate services to the customer upon request and upon brokering after these contracts. They fully participate in the consensus and they're full validator nodes. The third and last entity class are regulatory authorities, which only observe the DLT state and updates. Basically, they are on the lookout for any misbehavior. They do take part in the consensus to keep operators in check and to provide fallback nodes for customers and new operators. In this picture, you can see a representation of our proposed system flow when a customer wants to purchase a service. So first, so the arrow labeled with 1, the user accesses the DApp to find a list of available services and so available service contracts and choose one depending on its preferences. Again, this can be automated. 2, there is a transaction that is sent to the chosen service contract containing a service payment as well that basically will be held as an escrow by the service contract to then remunerate, if everything goes well, the operator that manager of the contract, so the one providing the service. Then we are at the arrow labeled as 3. And if the transaction is well formed and is acceptable by the contract, then eventually it will be validated through the consensus, which leads us to step 4, where the operator in charge of that given service contract gets notified and then allocates the network resources that are needed to provide the service. So of course, they need to match the promised service level agreement. While service is actually delivered, so we're the line 5 in the bottom, both the operator and the customer independently monitor the quality of service delivered. So that at step 6, we find a receipt that contains the, let's say, the quality of service metrics measured, can be stored in the contract, and the funds that were held as escrow in the beginning can be redistributed to the customer and the operator accordingly to the quality of service. So basically depending on whether the SLA was infringed or not. In our paper, we have provided an evaluation that's mainly focused at, let's say, evaluating our choice of using a permissioned distributed ledger. To do so, we have deployed a proposal system on private instances of both Quorum, which is a permissioned Ethereum clone, and Hyperledger Fabric. So we have compared the performances between these two options, and also with the permissionless protocol Ethereum, in particular by deploying our smart contracts on the Ropsten public testnet. You can see from the results on the left how Hyperledger and Quorum performances are pretty similar, with Hyperledger being a little slower but more stable, more consistent in its results than Quorum. Of course, on the right you can see the result for Ropsten, and unsurprisingly, they are an order of magnitude slower compared to Hyperledger and Quorum. Note how the scale for the permission experiment on the right is in second, while we have milliseconds on the left. To sum up, we have shown how there is a need for a new paradigm of service provisioning to really unlock the full potential of 5G networks' novel application. We have also shown our proposal to encode service contracts and service level agreements within smart contracts, coupled with accountable monitoring of quality of service, could fill the gap and embrace such new paradigm by allowing accountable and just-in-time service provisioning with benefits for both operators and customers. Thank you.